there, my name is Alice and I welcome you to my very first video. I'm a big believer in the magic and the wonder that is life and what lies just under the surface of our existence. I've spent many years searching for my own spiritual truths and still searching to this day. At this point in time, I am not sure where this new adventure will take me, but I know that this is something that I have been led or strongly pushed to do by Spirit, and have been told many times it's time for me to jump off the cliff to spread the knowledge, wisdom, and spiritual truths that I have come to learn for myself, in hopes that it will inspire another to question, seek, and find their own spiritual truths. I know this topic of this video is going to be too deep, especially for a first-time video, and I've struggled with whether this was the right one to start this adventure with. However, as Spirit does, it has been validated over and over and time again, so this has to be the one, the beginning. My intentions here are to offer some hope and healing to those who are scared of what happens to us at our end, or are grieving over someone who has transitioned into Spirit already. Today I want to share with you a true story of what I witnessed for myself when my grandfather transformed. This one event completely erased any fears of what I had of what lies beyond. The word death is one of the most feared words for most on this earth. But personally, I have learned a long time ago that death is not something to fear, but more of a loving birth back to our spiritual home. I know. I can hear it now. How can it be peaceful when some souls pass in such violent ways? Hold your reins, we'll get there. As one who talks with Spirit and has personally had the blessing of witnessing Archangel Azrael come for someone, this is really an earthly fear I no longer hold. Before we get too far into the story, I guess it's time to own up to one spiritual gift I have that I never really talk about or share. People tend to start fearing you for this one. However, it's beginning to become clear to me that it's time to own it and use it for the highest and best good, and something that I know is along my path. Okay, so here it is. Blunt, plain and simply. I tend to know when souls are preparing to transition or have already transitioned into Spirit before others know. It's not like I can look at someone and see the date of their demise. Oh no, it's very different than that. So you may be wondering, how did I lose my fear of death? Well, it took time. Like most, I was raised with mainstream Christian beliefs, being raised a Baptist and going to a Catholic school. Having those domineering ideas and fear instilled into me that if you don't live according to the letter of the Bible, you're going to burn in hell. I laugh at that statement now. Heaven and hell are states of consciousness, with people living in those states now, in this earthly realm. But that's a topic for another day. As I grew older, starting to research and question and ponder every aspect of religion, spirituality, and earthly life, those early ideas no longer resonated with me. I saw Spirit, and I found my truth the more I searched. So, what was the final nail in the so-called coffin? For me, that would be the day my granddaddy transitioned, and the day I met Archangel Azrael for the first time. An angel I have felt many times, but never seen before. My family knows I saw the light come and take him. They know I saw the look on his face, but not even my family really know just what I saw that day. My granddaddy was a very quiet, simple man with hypnotizing bright blue eyes. You know, those eyes that just seem to see right through you, going to your very core. My gram called them bedroom eyes. He was a very quiet man and never really said much unless it really needed to be said. Thinking back, I don't ever really remember him saying much of anything, although I know he did. I spent a lot of my childhood with my grandma and my granddad, often spending the weekends, days off from school, and going on road trips to visit family with them. I spent many nights just sitting there watching him, wondering what his life was like before me. After all, he didn't really tell me or my cousins much of anything. I found out more about him after he had transitioned than I was ever told right from his mouth. I am proud to say that he was a Navy man, a Korean War veteran, who served as a cook on the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. He served his time in Newfoundland and was stationed in Germany, but that's about all I know about his military time. Who knows? Maybe that's why I have a fascination for listening to war vets now. He had this funny thing, and I don't know where it came from, but he never went to weddings, not even mine, his only granddaughter. But funerals, he was the first in line at. I still don't understand why. So as my granddaddy began to age, this is where the meat of the story comes in. See, he passed from diabetes complications. At the very end, his kidneys were failing, resulting in dialysis 3 times a week just to stay alive. I had to give major props to my Gram. She stayed by his side till the very end. Grammy would spend long days and nights at the nursing home with him every day, ensuring he was receiving the very best of care. After all, that is the essence of unconditional love. Not to mention she was an RN and knew her shit. After a few weeks of constant dialysis, begging him to eat, and hearing him talk about the little green men running around his room, our family was confronted with having to make the decision to stop the dialysis. Yes, that meant we as a family had to make the decision that would result in his death. Well, technically Grammy had to make that call, but she wanted the whole family's input. So one night, the entire family gathered at the care home in a small little conference room to discuss the course of action. We knew that it would be about 7 to 10 days after his last dialysis treatment that death would occur. We discussed it as a family and made the decision to stop treatment and let him move on. After all, it wasn't fair to him to suffer just because we weren't ready for him to go. It's important to know at this point he had stopped talking and really interacting with anyone. He just laid there in pain, just existing. After the decision was made, we as a family decided to get some dinner. As we were all walking out of the care home, I felt an overwhelming need to run back to my granddaddy. I felt a strong need to tell him one important thing. As I raced back to his room, my family not knowing what I was doing, I walked in, kissed him on his forehead, and told him, "Granddaddy, it's okay for you to go. We will make sure Grammy is taken care of. There is no need to hold on anymore. I just want you to know how much I love you," and I left the room to join my family. About this time, my beautiful goddaughter was due to be born, and I was determined to be there for her arrival. However, Spirit had other plans. I didn't want to be there the day that my granddaddy passed. I was not ready for that. But again, Spirit had other plans. A week had gone by now, and it was the 7th day since his last treatment. I knew I had to go see him one last time before it was too late. This day happened to be the day Maddie was due to be born. Matter of fact, Mommy and Daddy were already at the hospital prepared. And yes, this is significant to the story. So I opted to head to see my granddaddy. I arrived at the care home and spent all day with him and Grammy. He just laid there, his beautiful eyes gleaming, behind a body that had absolutely no strength. Our family members popped in and out during the day, and we would just talk and reminisce about the past and memories we all held so dear. As the day wore on, he began to get that death rattle, and the energy in the room shifted. By this time of day, Graham and I had been there since early morning, and really had nothing to eat. I asked Gram if she wanted to run and get some dinner and then come back since my aunt was there at this time. Gram agreed, and just as I stood up to gather my stuff, out of nowhere, Granddaddy grabbed my arm so hard it honestly hurt a little and pulled me back down to my seat. Now remember, he had absolutely zero strength and struggled just to lift his head. I stopped dead in my tracks. I looked at my Gram and said, "We can't go anywhere." We both agreed and started calling the rest of the family, knowing time was getting short. All of our family had shown up except for my dad. He was still on the road, with still hours left to go, just trying to get there. The whole family was just praying that Daddy got there in time. But once again, Spirit had other plans. His hospital bed at this point was surrounded by our entire family. Grammy was on his left, and I was on his right, both of us holding in one of his hands. We watched as his breathing became slower and slower. Oh God, the one event I didn't want to witness was happening. All of a sudden, I watched Granddaddy look up at the ceiling and start smiling ear to ear. I looked up and the most beautiful glimmering light started to descend from the ceiling. Oh crap. The portal was opening. Granddaddy looked at me and he knew I saw it too. He then looked at my Grammy with the biggest, brightest smile. And then he turned once more and looked at me for the last time, taking his last breath. As I continued to watch the scene unfold, mesmerized by the light, a huge, beautiful angel appeared, took him by the hand, and they left, taking that bright, glimmering light with them. That was it. The portal had closed and Granddaddy was gone. No longer in pain, no longer suffering. We all just stood there in utter shock and disbelief that he was actually gone. Unfortunately, my daddy didn't make it in time. I guess that was part of the divine plan. But the peace I witnessed that day, how beautiful, serene, and the feeling of unconditional love was so transformative for me, that is the day I no longer feared the ultimate transition. I was one of the few rare souls that got to see it firsthand. My granddaddy and I communicate all the time now. I always know when he's around. And it's actually funny. Our relationship is now closer and stronger since he is in spirit. One of the biggest ways he lets me know he's around is the song Simple Man. It shows up or plays at odd times or places. Other times I see him, or I feel him, or I smell him, or I just know he's there. A comforting guide for me. Now, I told you earlier that there was a significance about this particular day. My goddaughter was born just a few minutes after 7 in the morning. And my granddaddy took his last breath just a few minutes after 7 at night. The 7 connection, 7th day, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. The angel number 7 resonates with spiritual awakening and awareness, spiritual enlightenment, spiritual acceptance and development, mysticism, intuition and inner knowing, inner wisdom, empathic abilities and psychic abilities. Looking at this now, I understand why Spirit put me there. I needed to experience this. It was the one of the life-changing events that has led me to my current path I am on, and my future that is unfolding. So, what about those who pass in violent traumatic deaths? Well, I was shown that answer as well through a passing of a cousin. I'm not going to recount her story. That one's not mine to tell. But in short, she was taken during a car accident. I remember during her funeral, the gentleman that struck her said She looked right at me and had this big, beautiful smile on her face. I believe at that moment Archangel Azrael had already come and taken her before she was hit. I choose to believe that that is what spirit does. Before the body can really feel any more pain than it can handle, the soul has already left the building and the body's on autopilot. Why should we fear going home? After it all, it has to be better than what we endure here on this plane of existence. There is no pain, no suffering, no hardships, just pure unconditional love and bliss. Although I don't wish to die, I am ready and willing when my work here on this earth is complete. I am no longer afraid of what awaits on the other side. I am ready when God says it's my time to come home. And that is the day I shall rejoice. Until, that is, I'm told to come back once more, and then I'll probably cry. So I hope the sharing of this story has brought some peace, and I thank you for taking time to listen. May this start or help you on your quest to search for what's below just the surface. Never stop questioning, never stop seeking, and never stop growing.